and institutions of higher learning. The statistics indicate that in South Africa, 12 in every 100,000 women are victims of femicide, which is 5 times more than the global average of 2.6. 1 in 4 women over the age of 18 have experienced violence of some form from a partner in their lifetime. That is 25% of women. The Public Protector South Africa has then taken up space, and we host this webinar as part of the commemoration of the 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children, a campaign by the United Nations which takes place annually from the 25th of November to the 10th of December. In South Africa, we've been observing this campaign since 1998. As the Public Protector, we've identified a role for ourselves in this year's campaign, focusing on the struggle against GBV and femicide. We lend a hand under the theme towards a coordinated response to curb the scourge of GBV and femicide during COVID-19 in South Africa. Many may wonder what role the Public Protector has in such matters because the institution does not enjoy jurisdiction over criminal offenses such as common assault, sexual assault, rape, and murder, amongst others. While the Public Protector does have an indirect role, we are an independent institution established in terms of Section 181 of the Constitution to strengthen constitutional democracy. Section 182, subsection 1 enjoins us to investigate any conduct in state affairs or in public administration in any sphere of government that is alleged or suspected to be improper or to result in any impropriety or prejudice, to report on that conduct and to take appropriate remedial action. Subsection 2 confers on us additional powers and functions prescribed by the Public Protector Act 23 of 1994, in terms of which this institution is competent to investigate maladministration in the public sector, discourteous or other form of improper conduct or undue delay by a person performing a public function, to mention but a few. Given the above, clearly the office mandate does not extend to offenses that would ordinarily constitute GBV and femicide, as those would fall within the ambit of the criminal justice system. However, the institution does have jurisdiction in instances where victims of GBV allege service failure, such as undue delays by the relevant organs of state to attend to the complaints they have raised on abuse. For instance, in 2012, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development apologized and compensated a rape victim from Mutse along the Limpopo-Mpumalanga cross-border after a criminal case concerning the offense was postponed a record 48 times, dragging it for 6 years. The victim was just 14 years of age when she was abducted at knife point by 2 men who later took turns raping her. The assailants, who lived a few blocks from her house, had threatened to stab her if she screamed for help. She was reportedly rescued by a girlfriend of one of the assailants who raised the alarm after noticing what was happening. Feeling violated and angry, the girl reported the matter to the police with the hope that justice would prevail. Little did she know that she would make endless trips to the Groblersdal Magistrate Court, which is 25 kilometers away from her home, with no end in sight. On each court day, her unemployed mother would have to dig deep into her pockets to pay for the taxi fare. The 2 rapists were eventually convicted and jailed. However, the Public Protector then decided to launch an own initiative investigation into the matter after learning of the victim's ordeal in the media. The investigation focused on the alleged undue delay by the South African Police Services to finalize its investigation within a reasonable time. The approach was that the delays appeared to have subjected the victim to secondary victimization. The investigation revealed that the acts and the omissions of the police and the prosecuting authority fell far short of the acceptable standards of good administration in terms of the Constitution of the Republic, and this then constituted maladministration. The investigation further revealed that the SAPS, the NPA, and the Department of Justice did not adhere to the set standards and prescriptions of minimum standards on service for victims of crime, also known as the Victims' Charter. In addition, the investigation found that the victim had suffered prejudice when her constitutional rights to dignity, equality before the law, and the rights to, as a child, be afforded action in her best interest were not respected and when she was not afforded the protection provided for in the Victims' Charter. In view of this, the public protector called for the victim to be compensated and the compensation be calculated the number of postponements again and her mother incurred. The public protector also called on the National Commissioner of the SAPS, the National Director of Public Prosecutions, and the Department of Justice to issue a letter of apology to the victim for the delay in the finalization of the trial. It is against this background then that we've convened such a virtual dialogue. In order to enrich the quality of the discussions, we've assembled a panel whose members are drawn from various institutions in and outside of government with a direct role in the alleviation of GBV and femicide. Apart from the public protector today and the deputy public protector, who are the hosts, we have in our midst the Deputy Minister of Social Development, Ms. Henrietta Bogopane Zulu. We've got the Acting Divisional Commissioner Detective Services of the SAPS, Major General Bafana Linda. We also have the spokesperson for the Commission for Gender Equality, Mr. Javu Baloyi. We also have the chairperson of the Development of Cultural and Religious Rights, Ms. Togom Kwanaze Kaluva. We have gender activist and founder of Wise Africa Organization, Advocate Brenda Madumise Pachibo, and a gender-based violence survivor, author, and motivational speaker, Pastor Miriam Mashiho. Our proceedings are also live on YouTube. We invite viewers to interact with us by way of questions or remarks on the comment section of that medium. We'll try and add them here as we proceed. We also encourage our participants on the Zoom platform to also comment on the chat box and share their perspectives. We will then, at this point, give over to the Public Protector, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, to give us a keynote address. Thank you, and over to you, PP.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Acting CEO, Program Director, for the opening welcome. And I will take this opportunity to thank all of you as panelists today, acknowledging Deputy Public Protector Advocate Galeka, Deputy Minister of Social Development, Ms. Bogopane Zulu, Acting Divisional Commissioner, Detective Services of the South African Police Services, Major General Bafana Linda, Chairperson of the Development of Cultural Religious Rights, Ms. Togo Mkhwanazi Kaluva, Spokesperson for the Commission for Gender Equality, Mr. Javu Baloyi, gender activist and founder of Wise for Africa Organization, Advocate Brenda Madumise Pachibo, gender-based violence survivor, author and motivational speaker, Pastor Miriam Mashiho, distinguished guest. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me begin by extending to you all a word of gratitude for having made time to join us today, as well as tackle the pertinent issue of gender-based violence and femicide. Your participation goes to show how serious you are about eradicating this scourge. Let it serve as an inspiration to others, for this is a massive battle which we can only win if we work together. The democratic South Africa endeavors to do away with adversarial and retributive approach to criminal justice, reminiscence of apartheid in favor of a more restorative way of doing things. At the core of this approach is the recognition of crime as more than an offense against the state, but also as an injury or wrong done to another person. The issue pertaining to the jurisdiction of my office, where GBV and femicide are concerned, has been dealt with thoroughly. At the risk of belaboring the point, let me stress the fact that the Public Protector Act 23 of 1994 in section 6.4 empowers my office to investigate maladministration in connection with the affairs of government at any level, abuse or unjustifiable exercise of power, or unfair and capricious behavior, improper conduct, undue delay by a person performing a public function. Where the Act refers to maladministration in connection with the affairs of government at any level, the criminal justice is covered only to the extent that we focus on the administration of justice side of things, so as not to interfere with the judicial and prosecution, which must be exercised independently. For instance, the Constitution bars
We seem to be having a sound problem. PP, we cannot hear you anymore. PP? ICT, can you please assist the PP? We have lost her. Apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. We will await briefly for the PP to continue with her keynote address. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just been informed that the PP is re-establishing connection. She will be with us again shortly. Apologies for the delay. Welcome back, PP. Can you hear us? PP, welcome back. You are muted. Can you hear us, PP? You are muted.
Thank you so much. I had to join using my private email.
It's okay.
I'll proceed. Yes.
Yes.
For instance, the Constitution, as I've indicated, bars my office from investigating court decisions. But if you go through the recent report of the matter in question, which was mentioned by the program director, you will realize that the appropriate remedial action which was taken by the Office Against the Police, the Prosecuting Authority, and the Department of Justice and Correctional Services was one which remedied the problem. One of the authorities relied upon in that investigation was the Service Charter for Victims of Crime. 2 weeks ago, on the 21st of November 2020, the Charter makes 13 years since it was officially launched. The legal framework concerning how the state goes through its various institutions within the criminal justice value chain ought to interact with the victims of crime as encapsulated in the Charter. In terms of the Charter, victims enjoy the following rights: the rights to be treated with fairness and with respect for dignity and privacy, the right to offer information, the right to protection, the right to assistance, the right to compensation, and the right which any South African enjoys in terms of the Constitution. Yes, do you hear me? Program Director?
Yes,
Program
we can hear you. We do hear you.
I propose that you take another speaker so that I can resolve these connection problems. Thank you.
Thank you, PP. Thank you so much, PP. We will proceed then with the agenda. Major General Bafana, Linda. Major General Linda. We will take your address, Major General. General, can you hear us?
Good morning, Program Director, and good morning to the Public Protector, Advocate Mkwebane, the Honorable Deputy Minister, Zulu, distinguished guests, and please allow me to say all protocol observed. Mfana Marapo, thank you very much for the opportunity that you awarded the SAPS to be part of this webinar. It is an honor and a privilege to come and share with you the services that the SAPS is rendering. I do want to begin by saying that policing gender-based violence is a very difficult or the most difficult area of policing for the SAPS, given the fact that these are crimes within closed doors, these are crimes within the dark alleys, these are crimes whereby the victims are suffering in the hands of those who are supposed to protect them. Unfortunately, when these crimes are happening, the police are not there. But given the directives of the questionnaire that I received, that I should also share with you in terms of the GBVF cases during the time of lockdown, I do want to say that it will be divided into two phases. The first phase is your level 5 and level 4 lockdown period, whereby we observed and seen a decrease in all crimes, including GBVF. Then beginning at the level 3, which was announced for the 1st of June this year, that when there was also announcement to the access to the substance abuse, which I will call it alcohol. That's where we saw in the GBVF more so intimate murders. That's where we saw women dying in the hands of those who say they love them. Then from that period onwards, we saw an increase that went up. There's a time where we saw victims that were murdered while they are pregnant and being hanged over the trees. We saw victims that were murdered within the houses and hidden within the beds, within the houses of those whom they were staying with. To continue, I do want to mention also that what mechanism do we have within the SAPS in dealing with the investigation of these cases? We will remember that on the 1st of June 2010, the SAPS re-established the specialized unit called the FCS, which stands for Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Investigation. We have 185 units countrywide. 10 of them, they are specifically dealing with the serial rapist and electronic crime investigation. Why is it so difficult for women to report? And what is the SAPS doing about it? We will remember, it's not only on the side of the police that discourages the women to report, but it's also within the families where they come from, and also the kind of the scourge of crime that they find themselves with. Number one, they're also afraid of secondary trauma, and also they're afraid of the stigma that comes with them coming to report. But what is the SAPS doing about it? One, we are having awareness campaigns that is run by 2 divisions, Division Visible Policing, Social Crime Prevention, and also Division Detective Service within the FCS environment, where we join together. In some other cases, we also join hands together with our stakeholders, NPA, and we go and render the awareness campaigns where we explain the reason for reporting, and also why should people report even if though they don't know the suspect. That on its own, and we also explain to them the procedures to follow in reporting such cases. In most cases, in my experience, whenever we went out for awareness campaigns, the reporting increases after the awareness campaign. Some of the cases come from the floor or the audience that the awareness campaign is raised on. Number 2, we also have the training of our police officers, which is ongoing in terms of the first responders. They go through the sexual offenses training, and also the detectives, and also the specialized unit, which is FCS, where they undergo the FCS DLP. The issue of gender, whether women will prefer to be served by women when they're coming to report. I happen to differ, given to the experience I have within this field, because I'm not only the acting divisional commissioner for detective service, I'm also the component head for the specialized investigation on GBV. Women differ. Some prefer to speak to men because they feel that men are able to go out and get the men that might have abused them or raped them. Some prefer to speak to women. So when you look at it, it's divided amongst those who want to be served by men and those who want to be served by women. We don't have a study that can specifically say that women prefer to be served by women. In some other case, women being failed by other women must go home. This is not a moment we cannot have until we have a study that will tell that which percentage is higher than the other. So at the moment we have a balanced observation that women, there are those who want to be served by women, there are those who prefer to be served by men, because they feel that the same men that are reporting to will be able to use the same authority and power to go and arrest other men in terms of their masculinity. The issue of the LGBTIQ plus, I happen to have served in the steering committee, National Steering Task Team Steering Committee within the justice system, whereby we had a team that was focusing and also having all the LGBTIQ plus community represented, where we dealt with the backlog cases, we dealt with the complaints, and some cases that were on the backlog, we put them on the cold case strategy plan, whereby we went to review those cases which they were complaining about. And that forum is still existing. So I am made to understand that we are taking care of those matters. But the issue of them being not comfortable to report, obviously is also in twofold. They're also afraid of stigmatization from their own community, or some of them have not disclosed. Maybe within their family, within their community, that might make it difficult for them. And for us as SAPS, the Constitution don't allow us to ask a person when he comes to a police station, whether are you belonging to LGBTIQ plus community or not. So we served in terms of the Constitution, people equally as they come to report. If they decide not to disclose, we won't be able to ask them questions on that matter. And on the issue of strategies, as I've already said, that we do have 185 specialized units. And Public Protector, I can divulge now that the last financial year, 2019-2020, we attained as a collective 635 life sentences, 637, I beg your pardon, 637 life sentences, whereby 405 individuals are sharing that life sentences. And that is increasing PP every year, whereby people are getting life sentences. We have our DNA linkage system within our laboratory, where we are able to identify an individual, even though the complainant cannot identify the face. For example, a case of Alexandra Symmetry Balaclava Serial, where none of the victims saw him, but through our scientific methods, we were able to connect through DNA and be able to have that person sentenced into 18 life sentences, because there were cases that were linked towards that one. On the same system as well of our DNA, our laboratory system, last year in 29 of August, in Pinetown, the court there dished out 32 life sentences into a serial rapist that was linked women and telling them that he has a job for them somewhere. We call him a job seeker. Then issue of migrants, well, also on migrants is also one have to zoom in. There are those who are in the country legally. There are those who are undocumented. Obviously, those who are undocumented, it won't be very easy for them to come forward, which makes them victims. And the perpetrators, they might know that they're undocumented. And if they're undocumented, they might be afraid to come to report at the police station. But if they do come to the police station, the Constitution protects each and every inhabitant within the Republic that we can assist. We won't ask questions. We have those who are in human trafficking. When we found them, our priority won't be to ask them about documents. Our priority is to service them as the victims of crime within the country itself. Well, how could we work together? How could the Public Protector assist us? Well, allow me, Prime Director, to start by saying we have our internal controls within the SAPS. We have our intervention teams that are monitoring the systems in terms of performance, whereby we dispatch those teams in different provinces to go and look at the policy and standard and compliance within the that environment, number one. Number two, we have what we call a division called the Inspectorate. Inspectorate also, they also conduct inspections and checking compliance, and also looking at the complaints, because they also deal with complaints from the public. We should call it poor service delivery from the police side. So they do that. And we also have the internal audits that are also go down to the stations in different provinces. And their reports also informed us where the gaps are. So the Public Protector for us is a pillar to say to us, given all these internal controls we have, but there is still a gap here and there, and it can assist us also to be able to improve the service delivery that we're supposed to serve within our community in the country itself. So partnering with the PP, we welcome this opportunity that we were invited here. We are very feel honored, more especially on behalf of my initial commissioner. He always speaks to us to say, we cannot win this war together. We have to work with other stakeholders who has an access to the community and also be our eyes and ears to say, what is it that we're not doing right within the community itself? Because we have the mandate in terms of the Constitution section 205, remit 3, to prevent, combat, investigate any crime within the country and also to uphold the law and enforce the law. And I think there's a last point which speaks on the issue of the family putting pressure on the victims to withdraw. Point Director, that is our critical challenge that we have, because we spend all the resources within the environment to investigate. Then when the victim decides they don't want to continue with the case, there's nothing else we can do. What happens? We only learned at a very later stage that there was pressure from the community, or there were some negotiations between certain families, and there's some money paid or some fine or anything that paid in terms of trying to negotiate on those issues where the SAPS are not involved. But that one is a challenge, given the fact that these matters are happening within the community itself. And some of the members of the community don't want these matters to be reported. It becomes a taboo for them. They say it must become a family matter whereby the uncle or the grandpa have raped the child within the family itself. And those are the challenges we have, that if we happen not to know, then we can't do anything about it. But if we happen to know, then obviously we will institute an investigation, and the person who is persuading the victim to withdraw, automatically then we can charge the person with the different ends of justice. But the issue of withdrawal by the complainant is a problem, more so on domestic violence, whereby there is a cycle of violence, where today the husband beats you up, the following day comes and apologizes, buy you flowers, buy you a dress, take you out to a restaurant, and you love the person, so he's a part of the house and all those things. Then the third day, again and again and again. At the end, that's where you'll find that woman now being murdered by the very same individual. So that cycle of violence becomes a bit of a problem. And the issue of the court order is a document obtained in a regional court whereby a person writes an affidavit and states to say, I don't want Bafana Linda to do 1, 2, 3 in me. Maybe it's shouting, because the issue of domestic violence is broad. You have your sexual, it can be physical, it can be psychological, and it can be emotional, it can be economic. Some of the GPV are not punishable by law as crime, but it serves to be regulated in a civil manner through the civil procedure of the court order. Then when the person then contradicts that court order, then or fails to observe the conditions placed on the court order, that's when the individual must come to the police station and put up an affidavit. That affidavit goes back to court, and that person is in contempt of court. Then obviously the person can be arrested. More especially, the first interdict is preliminary or provincial. Then the final one normally is attached with a warrant of arrest, whereby then the police are now authorized. When a person comes up and say he has done 1, 2, 3, the police can take an affidavit, and that person can get arrested. I think I thank the opportunity I have, Prime Director. I'm sorry I might have taken your time. This is a very big topic. It needs more time. I have not spoken about the cyberbullying of women within social media. I have not spoken about human trafficking, which is also becoming a problem in the country itself. But because the time is limited, I appreciate, I thank you so much, and I submit, Prime Director. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Major General Linda. Indeed, the topic it's broad, but thank you so much for sharing the insights and also highlighting some of the harsh sentences that have been imposed on the perpetrators of such crime, and more so the technology in identification of such suspects or perpetrators in this regard. Thank you so much, Major General. At this point, I will go back to the Public Protector, Advocate Mkhwebane. The connection has been well established now. We can be able to take the Public Protector. I will request that as panelists, when we speak, we please switch off our videos. Thank you. Over to you, Public Protector.
Thank you so much again, Program Director. Apologies for the glitches in the connections. As I said, that as an institution, the Public Protector, we investigate such issues as mentioned by the Program Director earlier, and the issues pertaining to the jurisdiction of my office, where GBV and femicide are concerned, has been dealt with thoroughly. In terms of the Public Protector Act, Section 6(4), it empowers the Office of the Public Protector to investigate maladministration. Therefore, the issue of the criminal justice system is covered only to the extent that we focus on the administration of justice side of things, so as not to interfere with the judicial and prosecutorial powers of the courts and the prosecuting authority, amongst others, which must be exercised independently. And I said earlier that, as seen in the case which was referred to by the facilitator, we do investigate undue delay on the part of the police to deal with matters expeditiously, and also we do make recommendations. So in this matter, we've made recommendations or remedial actions which were taken against the police, the prosecuting authority, and the Department of Justice and Correctional Services. So one of the authorities we relied on was the Service Charter for Victims of Crimes. And we know that this charter 2 weeks ago, on the 21st of November 2020, it was marking 13 years since it was officially launched. So the legal framework currently of this victim charter encapsulate the following: that the right to be treated with fairness and with respect for the dignity and privacy, the right to offer information, the right to protection, the right to assistance, and the right to compensation. So the Charter seeks to eliminate secondary victimization in the criminal justice process, ensure that victims remain central to the criminal justice process, clarify the service standards that can be expected by and are to be accorded to the victims whenever they come into contact with the criminal justice system, and makes provision for victims' recourse when standards are not met. So to ease the implementation of the Charter, government developed a minimum service standards for victims of crime. So we know that, and when it comes to the jurisdiction of the Public Protector, we make sure that there is that compliance to the service charter, to this charter, and the Commission on Gender Equality, which they will also address us in this matter. So the charter further recognizes the right to complain to government departments or service provided in the respect of dissatisfaction as far as this matter is concerned. So we do get these kinds of cases, even though they are in a minority. For instance, we are currently investigating allegations that the late Ms. Altisha Korchi, who among others, along with her 7-year-old daughter, Rainesia, was found murdered in Belhar, Cape Town on the 12th of June, 2020. This was after she was allegedly turned away by officials at the Belleville Magistrates Court when she approached the court for a protection order against her alleged killer and as estranged partner. The investigation was triggered by a complaint lodged on the 18th of June 2020 by the Deputy Minister of Justice, John Jeffrey. The investigation is at an advanced stage, but there's one which we have just recently concluded. On the 15th of November 2018, my office was approached by Ms. Togo Mkwanazi-Kaluva on behalf of Cheryl Zondi, alleging maladministration on the part of the Office of Witness Protection Office of the National Director of Public Prosecutions, when that office failed to adequately inform Ms. Zondi of her rights to protection in terms of Section 10(1)(g) of the Witness Protection Act 112 of 1998. The complainant alleged that on the 23rd of October 2018, she was alerted about a potential threat to her life by a brigadier in the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigations by reason of being a witness or a potential witness in a criminal matter relating to the prosecution of Pastor Timothy Amudoso on 38 charges of human trafficking, rape, and abuse of young women. Upon receipt of this information, she decided to seek witness protection and reported her concerns, beliefs, and fears to the Office of Witness Protection. On the 2nd of November 2018, the complainant met with an official of the head of witness protection in Gauteng, Ms. Brennan, who explained to her how the witness protection program works, including indicating to her, amongst others, that she will need to be relocated, change her name, so that her identity can be protected. From this, the complainant understood that her educational aspirations will be compromised by the move, and most importantly, she will lose the support of her friends and family. Notwithstanding the risk to her safety, the complainant sent an email to Ms. Brennan indicating declining to be placed in a witness protection program based on the above reasons. In essence, she was of the view that the system was extremely rigid, too disruptive, and too unsympathetic to victims of crime. Following a thorough analysis of the complaint, I decided to focus the investigation on whether the conduct of the members of the Witness Protection Office by failing to initially inform the complainant of and to explore the availability of alternative means of protection in terms of Section 10(1)(g) of the Witness Protection Act, other than entry to the Witness Protection Program, amounted to maladministration. I also looked into whether the complainant was prejudiced as a result of this in the course of interaction with this office. And I found that the allegations that the members of the Office for Witness Protection failed to initially inform the complainant and to consider other means of witness protection as envisaged in Section 10(1)(g) of the Witness Protection Act is substantiated. The state and institutions responsible for the criminal justice system have, through various instruments, charters, standards which recognize the rights of witnesses and victims of crime to receive information and to be informed of all relevant services available to victims and witnesses by service provider. It also includes the right to be protected from intimidation, harassment, fear, tampering, bribery, corruption, and abuse to ensure the victim's safety as a witness and the availability of her testimony. The risks and threats to the safety of the complainant were reported to the members of the Office for Witness Protection. So the complainant had a right to expect from this office or from the state to protect her against such threats and risks through the services and means at its disposal. So providing the complainant with an option to stay where she was when she clearly did not feel safe did not constitute alternative means of protection as envisaged in the Act and did not meet the standards of the service that the state and the Office for Witness Protection committed to and are expected of a public functionary in terms of Section 195 of the Constitution. So the Act recognizes in Section 10 that there might be circumstances in which witnesses or related persons might not be able to adjust to the witness protection program as invoked through the provisions of the Act. having regard to personal circumstances, circumstances and in fact, personal circumstances or family relationships. So in such circumstances, the Act implores the director to consider and explore the availability of other means of protection without invoking the provisions of the Act, meaning entry into the witness protection program. Therefore, to suggest that the director is only under a duty to consider and explore alternative means of protection if and when a witness or victim of a crime has agreed to be subjected to a formal witness program application process, and to abandon such a witness or victim if he or she indicates that they will not be able to adjust to the program, is in disregard of the very rights that the government and the institutions concerned profess to recognize and to commit to in the current victims and witness support framework and instruments. In the circumstances, it is clear that the state and the functionaries, in particular the Office for Witness Protection, did not live up to the standards of information and protection to which they have committed themselves. Therefore, in this instance, we found such conduct to be improper and as envisaged in terms of the Constitution. I also found that the allegation that the complainant experienced in the interaction with the members of the witness protection as traumatic and prejudicial, and that is substantiated. From the evidence at my disposal, the complainant was already suffering severe hardship as a result of being both a victim and a witness in a serious criminal matter that involved abuse and violation of dignity of a number of young girls, including herself, as alleged. So she had to discontinue her tertiary education. She intended to pursue, and due to personal nature of the crime that was committed against her, she was very reliant on her family for emotional and psychological support. So to remove her from the family, would be to remove the emotional and psychological stability that she experienced and relied on. So to be aware of the fact that her life was at risk and then be left without any effective protection also included or added to this trauma. To this extent, the findings and the remedial actions of the public protector are that we are ordering the acting director of the Office for Witness Protection to issue a written apology within 30 working days from the date of this report to the complainant, apologizing the failure by the Office for Witness Protection to offer her alternative protection in terms of Section 10(1)(g) of the Witness Protection Act, in line with the rights and standards recognizing witness and victim support framework as discussed in the report, and in consultation with the Director of Public Prosecutions, must establish guidelines through a policy document or operational procedures to facilitate the screening and assessment of each matter where it is reported in terms of Section 7(1) of the Act, that a witness has reason to believe that his or her safety is in danger or is threatened, and the further to promote and give effect to within their scope of responsibility and enforce the rights of victims and witnesses, to support and protect them as contemplated in the services, a service charter for victims and minimum standards on services. So the required policy and guidelines must furthermore give effect to the application of Section 10(1)(g), as I've indicated. So in the interim, pending the finalization of this standard operating procedure, the director must take steps to ensure that the initial preliminary interview witnesses are transparently informed of their rights and all possible alternatives in terms of Section 10(1)(g) of the witness protection, and what is available, what is not available. So in addition to this, then the Office for Witness Protection and the Director of National Prosecution will then work collaboratively to fund obligations in terms of this, and they can consider approaching National Treasury accordingly. So I further deem it necessary that in the public interest that this report on the findings of this particular investigation be submitted to and tabled in the National Assembly in terms of Section 8(2)(b) of the Public Protector Act. A copy of the report will be submitted also to the Minister of Social Development for noting insofar as it might relate to statutory interventions and intersectoral programs or victim support service programs that the department and relevant institutions have embarked on with the publication of the Draft Victim Support Services Bill 2019 to promote integrated service delivery for a victim and witness empowerment program. It is my hope that this report will be received in the spirit of our collective responsibility to assist victims of crime in the manner envisaged in the Charter, and to the extent that we criticize the conduct of members of the Office for Witness Protection, which is a constructive criticism, and we must all at material times focus on the plight of the complainants, in this case, victims of crimes, than anything else. So we run the risk of complicity in subjecting victims to secondary victimization if we as institutions that should remedy any shortcomings and provide victims with appropriate redress turn our attention and resources to issues other than the plight of those victims. Therefore, I would want us to also come up with solutions to the cyberbullying, as General has mentioned, especially on social media, and as well the threat to victims by threatening them with civil litigation, because that also perpetuates the issue of threats to the victims. And as far as the issue of withdrawal of cases, I think as a state case, currently the withdrawal is only approved with the approval of the Director of Public Prosecutions for the minors. So I think with the current amendments, it should be key that also the focus should be on adults, that no victim or families will compel a victim to withdraw a case unless the Director of Public Prosecutions approves of that. So I look forward to the engagements with fellow panelists. It is my hope that we will emerge out of this conversation better equipped to go play a meaningful role and impactful role in pushing back against the tide of GBV and femicide. I think talk without action is cheap. So let's be action orientated. Thank you, Program Director.
Thank you so much, PP. Thank you for the address and also for taking the time to share with us one of the reports that are addressing issues of service failure of state in such cases of GBV. Thank you so much. We are running behind time. I would therefore request that the panelists take 3 minutes in their remarks. I will now go to Pastor Miriam Mashigo. Pastor Miriam Mashigo is a GBV survivor, author, and motivational speaker. Pastor, if you can indicate to us in the next 3 minutes how the public protector through her mandate can best engage and support victims of GBV while also taking action that would support efforts and to end secondary victimization and help to reduce domestic violence. Over to you, Pastor Miriam.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the invite. I think in answering your question, how can they provide service? Number one, I was thinking of providing shelters for victims and their children, but more so in those shelters, providing skills development programs that would capacitate victims so that they are able to stand on their own and not depend on perpetrators, because the reason, and some of the reason victims or survivors would stay in abusive environment is because they are financially dependent on the perpetrators. And also most of the time they don't have shelters, they don't have support where they could go and start standing on themselves. So they need to be capacitated and be given skills to be able to stand on their own. also to empower them and make them aware that they are responsible for their healing process and journey. Have programs in place that would assist and also empower our youth that women have, they also have human rights on their own, and they have right to be protected and to be respected, you know, because I do prison ministry, and when I interact with most men or juveniles, which are males, they are not even aware that women have rights on their own as human beings to become, because most of them grew up in society where they were under the impression that women can be abused and women can be beaten up and be battered, and more so because they see victims or survivors not reporting those cases, obviously for the fear of their lives, and also for fearing to lose the support and the finance that they're getting from perpetrators. Because if I leave this environment, where else can I go? Is there somebody who is out there to catch me when I leave this abusive environment? And societies are not empowered in such a way that they can actually support survivors. If I have 2 children and I'm being abused in this situation, would you, as Yalekile, would you be able to accommodate me and my children? If you say I must leave, where do I go? I don't have skills, I don't have capabilities to stand on my own, and yet you're asking me to leave. If I live here, where do I go? Is there somebody out there willing to assist me? And if I bring my 2 children advocate, would you be able to care for us for 6 months, for 12 months, until I can stand on my own? If I don't have skills, if I'm unemployed with this high rate of unemployment rate in our country, who else can I depend to? So I would rather stay here than go and leave this environment. Also providing resources. Who else can I talk to? Am I believable? Can people listen to me, acknowledge what I'm being through, believe me, and also help me to become or to stand on my own? And maybe also starting conversations with men, because men are under impression that women are doormats. We can walk all over them. Some men are not even aware that a no is a no, because they grew up in society where they believed that when sometimes a woman says no, they actually mean yes. You know, and helping them to be independent. I mean, in my environment where I was abused, my daughter grew up in that environment. She then learned that it is okay for men to abuse a woman, because I stayed in that environment. No matter how many times I've been repeatedly beaten and being unconscious and coming back from hospital and coming back into the same environment, she then learned that it is okay to live within that environment where you are being abusive, in such a state that now at the age of 27, 28, she was saying to me, I can't go out with a man who does not beat me up, because then that man is very weak, because of the environment that we grew up, because that's what she saw me doing after being beaten up. And because I could not go anywhere else, I would then resort to staying. So it was okay for her to stay. So we need men to stand up. We need men to start talking about these issues. We need men to teach other men, because I've realized that women have spoken in so many platforms, but men are quiet. When are men going to start have conversations about abuse? Because men and boys and teenagers, men would listen to a man, boy will listen to a man, but men are not talking. Only few men are talking, but not all of them are talking. And we only hear about perpetrators, but we are not hearing a voice of a good man. We are not hearing a voice of leaders, trendsetters that are saying, men, boys, enough is enough. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Pastor Miriam. Thank you also for taking the time to share with us your experience, your scars. It does really indicate that you have gone through the healing journey. And, thank you for also giving us a challenge. I believe it's a challenge for all of us as a society the empowering of young women and girls at a young age so that they can be able to stand on their own when they are grown up. Thank you so much, Pastor Miriam. Now I will go to Mrs. Togo Mkwanazi Kaluva, who is the chairperson, excuse me, for the development of cultural and religious rights and deputy chairperson of Cheryl Zondi Foundation. Mrs. Kaluva, if you can please talk to us the GBV and the role of men in the religious and traditional spaces and how the public can support efforts to implement effective steps that can be adopted to help curb and ultimately end the GBV and femicide.
Thanks a lot, facilitator. Thanks a lot, PP and the DPP for inviting me to this very important interaction. But mostly, before I respond to the question, let me thank the public protector for finding in our favor in terms of the witness protection program. This will help thousands of victims who drop cases, and then everybody asks, why are people withdrawing their cases and their complaints? How come they're not seeing through their original complaint? No one wants to be hiding. No one wants to be running away from their lives. No one wants to find themselves in the middle of nowhere where they know no one. If you have to choose between your support and making sure that a perpetrator goes to jail, you have to be removed from your parents, from your friends, from your loved ones. The choice is very clear. Well, God will take care of that perpetrator. Let me take care of myself for now. So those things are very important, and I'd really like to thank the Public Protector's Office for this finding, and I hope they will act on it. Actually, I'm sure they'll act on it because you'll make sure that they do act on it, and they're going to make the lives of people better. In terms of the religious and the traditional sector, we feel that, you see, what has happened in the past is that we've discovered, while I was still with the Sarah Commission, that thousands of women get abused, but they never trust the system enough. When you've been told that, you know, God will make sure you die, you'll be struck by lightning, all sorts of things will happen to you. Depending on how much you trust your pastor, you believe that this is a message from God, and I must just do what this man wants me to do. And that has become a huge problem, because before they go to Major General Linda's people to go and report a traditional healer, especially, or a religious leader, it's years of asking oneself whether I should or I shouldn't. What is God going to do to me? And we find that the lack of a peer review mechanism where people can go to a particular committee and report what has happened. There's no profession in this country that is not regulated, except for the religious sector and the traditional healing sector. When you want to report these people, well, you can go to the CRL and hope they'll be brave enough to deal with them. Or you sit there and wonder, how do I do that? Even with the Civil Rights Commission, it's only based in Braamfontein. So if you are in Unu or Nutu or wherever you are, you won't find them. You'll sit there with your problem. So we decided to start an NPO that deals with religious and cultural rights, because it's those rights that people don't have. But how the PP can help is to encourage the relevant department, COCTA, to make sure that they push this legislation to Parliament, because right now there isn't even a draft, there's nothing. So how are we supposed to protect people when they're being emotionally, spiritually, financially, and sexually abused by their religious leaders? You know, when you go into a sacred space, like you going to church, you drop all your normal red flags. You know, you think, okay, this is a safe space. Whatever happens here, God wants it to happen. You go to a traditional healer and you think, oh, my ancestors want this thing to happen. And when someone says, throwing bones there and saying, oh, your ancestors want you to sleep with me, you're not going to say, my ancestors are sick. Eh? You're just going to say, oh, really? Is that what they want? And the fact that we are there in that environment means you've got that belief system already. So whatever is being said, you should accept what is being said. And it will take you years of trauma before you actually walk away. And the only way of walking away is to go to another traditional healer who might be able to help you. But on your own, you'll keep on doing what they want you to do. Bring me the money, bring me the cows, bring me this and that, and you are financially abused. You have to take loans. You resign before your pension time so that you can take your pension and hand it over. That level of abuse needs to be dealt with by their peers, whether it's in the religious sector, whether it's in the traditional healing sector. It's their peers who must then say, I know your ancestors are not saying that, or God is not saying that. As ordinary people, no one will believe us if we say that, but the lack of legislation to deal with these two professions. Even the Constitution says you have a right to choose your own profession, but you may be regulated in it. If you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, everyone has got somewhere where they're called to account. So how come in this country we've resisted making these people to account? How come in this country we let people be abused, knowing that they're being financially abused? I'm sure in the past few weeks, you've seen what has been happening. And you see how much people love their pastors and how much they rely on them. And even if, you know, their money is being stolen or they're being abused, to them, it's God's thing. And you can't fight with God. So what we would ask the public protector to look into is how the public protector can encourage COGTA to make sure that they do protect people in the religious sector and in the traditional healing sector. If we are a Twasa, I want to be a Sangoma, you go to a Gobela who's supposed to train you. It's unbelievable abuse that happens in some of these spaces. And these people are never willing to go to the police. They're never willing to look for help. They'll come to you confidentially and say, you know, this man is doing this and this and this to me, but, you know, there's nothing I can do. I don't want my family to know that I've been sleeping with the pastor or with the Gobela traditional healer. So they don't want to get to the system. But if there's a space that is safe enough of those peers, of other traditional healers, or of other religious leaders, they can then go there and feel confident enough that, okay, God is not going to punish me here. You know, I don't know how many times personally I've been told I'll be struck by lightning, I'm going to die, they're doing magic for me to die. Other people take this thing seriously. And they believe that the religious leader is really going to kill someone. God and them, you know, they're on the same WhatsApp group, just have to ask and you're dead. And you see, when people believe these things, they act in a particular way. The police station is so far removed from their minds. So I would really urge the public protector to look into that sector and see how far we can go in protecting women, especially from these violations that are happening in the religious and traditional healing sector. Thanks a lot, facilitator.
Thank you so much, Ms. Thank you so much. You've touched on critical issues, lack of legislation for religious leaders and traditional healers. That is a very critical aspect. And also the issue of lack of peer review mechanisms, people not asking for second opinions in such instances where they're being prophesied upon or whatever the cases are. We'll now go to the Deputy Minister, Bukgopane Zulu. Honorable Minister, in the next 3 minutes, if you can please take us through the role of the Department of Social Development, the Gender-Based Violence Command Center, the GBVCC at the department, and the National Emergency Response Team in protecting vulnerable groups, including people living with disabilities, and how the Public Protector can support efforts to achieve your goals and reduce and ultimately end GBV. Over to you, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Let me thank all the panelists, the Public Protector, General Muruti, Sis and Sis B, and all of the following speakers, allowing me to express my sincere thanks and gratitude on behalf of the department for our participation in the webinar. Allow me to just get straight to providing South Africans in terms of the clarity required. The National Emergency Response Team, it's a team that's constituted by social workers as well as psychologists specializing in trauma, and they are linked to our services so that they're able to provide care and support to our victims of gender-based violence, as well as our victims on victim support services, inclusive of perpetrators as well. It's very important that we understand that it is a system that is linked to the broad services that the department is providing, both to families and to victims of gender-based violence and femicide. I also need to just quickly indicate that the Gender-Based Command Center, it's a social worker on the other side. 24 hours, 7 days a week, you are able to Skype if you are one of those people that would like to see the social worker when you are talking to the social worker. It's not a call center, it's just a telephone based because it's run by social workers. It's very important also for me to indicate that the call is zero rated, so the department absorbs all calls, and there is a please call me system as well as a geolocator where we are able to actually identify where the call comes from. An electronic based referral system to the districts, as well as an electronic file tracking monitoring, so that we are able to know where the case is of what, but also where and when was the case reported. And the system is able to remind social workers consistently on where and ask the relevant questions. I think it's very important for us to understand, as all the other speakers have indicated, gender-based violence and femicide is a very complicated and it's like an octopus or a MOBA. You deal with this particular aspect, it activates the other aspect. You deal with that, it activates the other aspect. We run a number of programs of the department. Amongst them is hosting the register for sexual offenses, we've just launched the register for perpetrators, so that especially of sexual violence, trafficking, so that we are able to ensure that we can actually begin to develop programs that deal with prevention. Who is likely to kill, who is likely to abuse, who's likely to traffic, so that we see and develop programs. But we also provide the sheltering for victims. And I want to say to Muruti and Miriam that yes, indeed, we are aiding skills development in our long-term shelters, which is from 2 days to a year, where women are actually given skills. But we're also establishing cooperatives. There's a lot that we are doing. The challenge is our ability to upscale the programs to be able to actually deal. We run the program on men and boys championing change, And slowly but surely, we've understood the importance of involving men and actually investing in the boy child, not withholding the girl child. So I would like to say the public protector will assist us in ensuring that as a department, we are able to improve and upscale our services. But also we run the service satisfaction survey from time to time, especially from a GBVF, a sheltering services provision. So it's an area that I think the public protector could be part of, so that we consistently as a department get feedback from our users, but we also get to be held accountable for where we run short, so we are able to improve our services on an ongoing basis. I hope I've gone through the 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Program Director will be there to take questions, if any.
Thank you so much, Deputy Minister. Thank you for sharing the details around the services that are provided on the GBVCC, especially that they come at no cost to those that need them. I will now go to Mr. Baloyi. Mr. Baloyi, who is the spokesperson for Commission for Gender Equality. Mr. Baloyi, how society, especially men, can get involved in addressing and taking action against GBV and femicide beyond the 16 days campaign, and how can PPSA within its mandate support your effort in achieving your goals? Please take us through that, Mr. Baloyi. In 3 minutes. Mr. Baloyi, can you hear us? You are muted. If you can also please switch on your video. We seem not to be connecting well with Mr. Baloyi. I will then go to Advocate Brenda Madumise Pajibo, my apologies, who is the Director of WISE for Africa. Advocate, welcome. Can you take us through on how to organize advocacy groups to form partnerships and galvanize support from the public protector, taking into account the mandate of the institution in a manner that would yield results, as well as challenges faced by advocacy groups in fulfilling their mandates? Advocate Brenda.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity. The advocacy work is not easy, and it requires resources, right? And I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
I was saying, advocacy work is not easy work and requires resources, and resources is both human resource and financial. One of the challenges on advocacy work, and where I think we need collaboration and the public protector with the mandate that the office has, is to open the space for many advocacy organizations to do their work without hindrance, right? So one of the challenges faced by the work that we do is the non-responsiveness of officials and authority. For instance, you will request or write to a department, and I'll use an example of the Minister of Justice, where you raising issues with the Minister of Justice and there is no response, and it takes 6 months to a year for no response. And I think we need the Office of the Public Protector to get government to respond, right? Because their non-responsiveness lead to abuse of power and authority, and literally shows that they've got no interest in, one, addressing the issues that are faced by many women in this country on issues of gender-based violence and femicide. So our experience has been that the attitude that is given to civil society organizations of not responding, precisely because it's civil society, and also because it's what is being said and raised by civil society is what government does not want to hear, then they decide that they would not want to respond. And I think when we have that attitude and disdain and contempt for the work that is being done to ensure that all of us as South Africans and as civil society organizations working in collaboration, that work gets undermined when that attitude is exhibited.
Thank you so much, Advocate Madumise Pajibo. Thank you for sharing your suggestions and recommendations to us, which we take seriously into account. Mr. Baloyi, I'm not sure if you're able to hear us. If not, then we'll go to the discussion and session where we do the questions and Q&A session. I will now invite our attendees to use the chat box to pose comments or questions that they would want the panelists to respond to, as well as the rest of the people who are with us on the YouTube. Please use that platform to speak to us, air your views, and then we'll also discuss them here. I will start with Pastor Mashiko. You've shared with us your story. Can you tell us what are the telltale signs of an abusive relationship, and what were your biggest lessons that you've learned in an abusive relationship?
I think one of some of the red flags would be the perpetrator would sadly disconnect you, the survivor or the victim, with your lifeline support system, making sure that you have no one to run to. Number two, what they would do is they would detach you from your friends, your families, your colleagues, and your acquaintance, so that by the time they start abusing you, you have no link with the external world. What they normally do, they isolate you from everyone that you trust and put a cobweb around you so that you do not trust anyone but themselves. They are very manipulative. They like to play victim in everything that they do. They put the blame on the perpetrator, on the victim all the time. They lie a lot in everything. They remotely control you. And I think one of the weakness with the survivors or the victims is that you think the control is the loving, because every time they beat you up, they would come up with because somebody earlier on mentioned it's a cycle. On the cycle, as much as they explode and you don't know when they're actually going to attack you, when come to honeymoon phase, they have a tendency of buying you gifts and presents and giving you money, and you would think that is love, and yet they are trying to manipulate you. They are very manipulative. They will influence you and poison your thinking in such a way that, and when they influence you and they beat you up, they kill your confidence and your self-esteem. They belittle you in such a way that you end up feeling worthless, and you devalue yourself, and you doubt your thinking and your self-worth. So with that, you tend to rely more on them and think that they have the ultimate answer in your life. I'm sorry, I missed the second question. Yalekile, what was it?
It was what are your biggest lessons that you've learned in an abusive relationship?
You definitely need a support system, because if you don't have a support system, you are going to sit in that environment thinking that it is your destiny. And support system, I mean, with me, I stayed in my first marriage very abusive for 10 years because everyone around me was telling me, this is how marriages are. You must begezela, because you're going to be a part of statistics. So you need to know and be empowered to know that it is okay to pack your bags and leave. And I think I got a wake-up call, and I started regaining my strength when my daughter, at that time when she was 5 years old, at her crèche nursery, she drew a picture where she depicted herself killing her father. because I could not fight for myself. So we need to empower victims that it is okay to stand up and leave, despite the fact ukuthi abazali would normally say, begezela, khotelela, you're going to be part of the statistics. And also maybe educate the society not to stigmatize and to normalize abuse. If you have the support system, you gain the strength to stand up. The reason I stood up was because I realized that if I don't do something, my daughter, who was secondary, emotionally abused, took the abuse and then resorted in fighting my battle in a state that she was now resorting to going to take the father's gun and now killing him because I could not stand for myself. And I was not aware that if you are living in that environment and you have children, children are emotionally abused and they become the secondary victims in the same environment where you are. And that at some point, we need to educate women to start realizing that once he starts beating you up, it will not stop until you leave or because with me, even the court order that I would get from the sheriff, my ex-husband then would take the court order, go out with the sheriff, pay or bribe the sheriff, come back with that paper, tear it in my presence, and then start beating me up. So if you don't leave, you'll end up dying in that environment. And the most dangerous time of the victim is then when they decide to leave. Perpetrators will kill you when they realize that they are losing their battle and they are losing their foundation because they have put you in such a state that you cannot move, you cannot do anything. But immediately you start standing and saying, I'm leaving. That's a very dangerous time because that's when they can start striking you or killing you.
Thank you so much, Pastor, for sharing. You touched briefly also on children and how they get affected. Now, coming to the Deputy Minister, we are told that in the country, at least 1 in 3 children experiences some form of sexual violence. As a department, what practical and effective steps can the public in general adopt to help curb and ultimately end the GBV? What advice can you give to us in that respect?
It's very true that indeed children are always the recipients of the abuse that we experience in our homes, but also they then continue with the abuse. Hence, we are beginning to start programs that are focused on children, like we have CHOMI, which focuses on 10 to 14-year-olds, and we're fully aware that at that time the children are actually already having been exposed, as Moruti has said just now. But we also have programs, Ditsala, for 6 to 9-year-olds. And the intention is for us to begin to engage and develop dialogues that actually enable us to catch children that have been exposed to abuse earlier before they are able to become abusers themselves, but also debrief children and assist children with the ability to identify abuse as and when it happens around them, to them, and to their friends, so that if the friend cannot speak, the other child is able to reach out for help for their friend. So those are some of the programs that we are beginning to roll out to ensure that we get to a stage where families can get the support, but also that the children, like Moruti's children, and the people around the children are able to identify. We do that also through our Family Matters program and community capacity enhancement. We've now introduced the training of traditional leaders through the Rock Leadership Program, as well as the Village to Village program, focusing on limited resource areas where the police station is kilometers and kilometers away, but training traditional leaders to be able to also handle social and structural drivers, so that the very thing don't embarrass the family. We'll just pay the fine, or we will just slaughter the goat to cleanse, and all of that should no longer be part of our society. If you commit a crime, even the tribal court needs to deal with you in that way. And we realized that they were not capacitated to be able to address this. Hence, even in our men and boys program, we are actually also ensuring that each and everyone that has gone through this program. We also have YOLO, You Only Live Once, which focuses on 15 to 24-year-olds. All of these programs, we are upscaling them with additional resources to be able to reach as many young people as we can.
Thank you so much, Deputy Minister. Now over to Major General Linda. You've explained to us what a protection order is and how it works, but can you please explain to us what should victims of do if perpetrators of such violence breach the terms and conditions of the protection order? Major General Linda, can you hear us? Okay, it looks like Major General cannot hear. Can I come now to the PP? PP are organs of state cooperative when the office demands answers in respect of investigations that we do on undue delays to assist the victims of GBV. You are muted, PP.
Okay, it depends on an institution. Thank you, Program Director. I was saying it depends on an institution which we working with, because some organizations or institutions are cooperating with the Office of the Public Protector. Some commit themselves to provide information, but then they themselves do not provide information on time. Hence, you find that we investigate cases and we take, we also take a lot of time trying to receive responses. I mean, if I can mention the very same report I've issued today of the complaint by Cheryl Zondi, is that it was launched in 2018, but if that matter, we received quicker responses from the Office of the Witness Protection Offices and from the South African Police Services, from the Department of Justice, we would have finalized this investigation quicker. And as well, whilst the victim is still facing the risks which is being, they are being subjected to. So it's not always, assisting, but since we do have the powers to subpoena various institutions, we then fast track our investigation. And as well, some of the investigations, when we send subpoenas, we do explain that it's because we would want to expedite the matter. This investigation of the report we've issued today, it was a very emotional investigation, because also where you discover when you meet with the various stakeholders, the way they also treat the issue of abuse. And you see sometimes that they don't understand the trauma which the victim is facing and how public officials are responding to the victim. So in this particular incident, it was a meeting where even the minister, the director, the acting director of the office, and officials from the Department of Justice. But as well, the concern was that you find that it was only males who were there, and they don't seem to understand the challenge which the victim is going through, and the way they respond to the complaint. You'd see that they can't fathom what the seriousness of this particular matter. I heard General Linda say Some people prefer male police officials to open their cases. Indeed, sometimes it helps, but then sometimes having a woman who'd understand or also would somehow be or have empathy or understand what it means to being a mother or a woman if you are going through something like that, because sometimes being a woman, you find that you have a daughter who might be going through something like this. So I think there's more which needs still to be done or to improve on from the organs of state. Thank you.
Thank you, PP. One more question as well to you. To avoid subjecting the victims, as you've indicated earlier, to such secondary victimization, what powers does the office have to ensure that there is cooperation during investigations? And internally, how do you ensure that the investigators do not let the cases go cold?
Yes, in this matter, I've indicated already the hard powers which the public protector has, the powers to subpoena any state official to come and account before the public protector. We do also have the power of search and seizure, which we have not yet utilized as an institution in terms of our legislation, where we would want to access information and it's not provided. And further, internally, we do have the structures of the various executive managers who must conduct investigations, who must also do file inspections, who must guide the investigators on how to deal with the matter. And as well, there are structures like your public protectors dashboard sessions where such matters are deliberated on or are discussed and guidance is given. Unfortunately, yes, due to the workload of the institution, you find that such matters are delaying, and such matters are not matters to be left for a long time because the victim is continuously suffering persecution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, PP. Now over to Mrs. Mkwanazi Kaluva. I believe that in your previous role as a chairperson of the CRL Commission, you came across cases of men, like you indicated earlier, in religious and traditional cycles, abusing women and girls. Can you share further any experiences around that?
Thanks a lot, facilitator. I think the most shocking thing for me at the time was how aggressively people would think are religious leaders. Sorry to Pastor Miriam, but some of them, you know, they do unbelievable things and abuse people's belief systems. And in that way, they make people do anything. We've seen the issue of the 7 angels from the Eastern Cape, who were angels from heaven, who just happened to come here and choose their parents. And people truly believe that these are real angels and they treated them the way you treat an angel. Give them all your money, give them anything that they want, give them your body, give them anything. And I think at that point, then I realized the hold that our belief systems have on us, that when we believe even the most ridiculous stuff, because we believe that, you know, men of God don't lie, traditional healers don't lie. We give them what they don't deserve. But the level of patriarchy in these settings is amazing. You find that most female pastors are much more, you know, in terms of being the real religious leaders that we know. But you find that most people who are doing wrong things are males. And males use patriarchy, firstly, to say, because I'm here, you must believe everything that I say. And their aggression became so bad that at some point I had to get bodyguards, things I never thought I would get. PP, I'm sure we are used to having protectors. But some of us are used to going anywhere, anytime without thinking. And I had to do the most unusual thing and get a protection order against a religious leader, because that was getting totally out of hand. When you have to get a protection order against a religious leader, then you must know we have a problem. When they can give you a 5-year protection order that is airtight, because you have proven that this man, for some reason, wakes up in the morning and thinks about me. I'm sure most of you will know which pastor I'm referring to. He'll remain nameless today. But it helped in the way that, you know, sometimes you think these things called protection orders don't work. I decided to test that system. I didn't go to the High Court, I could have, but I decided, let me pretend like I'm Mam Kwanazi from Umlazi. What would I do under these circumstances? I discovered that the system works. I don't know, maybe it's because it was me, and then maybe the system polished itself up, but it worked. And I walked out with the temporary protection order. Within 2 weeks, I had a permanent protection order for 5 years. So I think we need to begin to say to religious leaders and traditional leaders and healers that there's something bigger than your Bible. It's called the Constitution. And I think the more we push that agenda forward, that don't tell me that, you know, chapter so and verse so and so says this. I'll tell you what section says what in the Constitution, that we have all agreed to this pact that will respect the Constitution irrespective of your beliefs, irrespective of your religion, irrespective of anything else. And I think it is that helps us move forward, that we prioritize the Constitution more than we prioritize individual belief systems.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mrs. Mkhwanazi Xaluva. Advocate Madumise Pajibo, on some of the issues that were indicated earlier on, included empowerment of young women. What work does your organization, Wise for Africa, do in this regard, where women have suffered GBV, whether they've reported, they're scared to report because they've got no way out financially should they leave such relationships?
Thanks, program facilitator. The work we do is multifold. So it's around advocacy and advocating for changes in policy instruments and legislation. Second is just being present and assisting women who find it very difficult to navigate the justice system. Ms. Xaluva just spoke about obtaining a protection order, and it was easy for her. For the majority of women, it's not easy. If you live in Lichtenberg or in the outskirts of any metropolitan area, for you to approach a magistrate court to obtain a protection order, you have to take 2-3 taxis, and most of the time, those women don't even have that money available. So we walk that journey with them to make sure that they can navigate a court system and they can get that protection order. We also do work around sexual harassment, and which is quite huge in corporate South Africa, and the same thing. Most women, because they don't know where to find assistance and help, they die in silence with the abuse that they suffer at the workplace in as far as sexual harassment is concerned. So those who are brave enough to speak out, then if they don't have a safe space to land on, they will not get the justice that they deserve. And that's when we step in to provide them with that safe space, but also to work with them through that process of making sure that there is justice for them in their workplace. We do quite a lot of work around custody battles and access to children, and divorce cases where abuse manifests itself and is present in a family setting. And you will be amazed at how many women rights are trampled upon because they are so scared and don't have resources. I mean, and one of the things that we have not spoken about in this country is how prohibitively expensive justice is. That for you to mount your case and be successful with getting justice, you have to spend thousands and thousands of rands to do so. And it's something that we need to talk about, and how we make sure that access to justice is accessible for the many South Africans, and that once it's accessible, it's not also very foreign to them, that they don't even understand it. And so that's the work that we do, just to simplify and demystify some of these issues and terms that are used on a daily basis.
Thank you so much, Advocate. We greatly appreciate the work that you do. It's indeed priceless. The support you provide for the victims can be able to get support and the services that they require during their difficult times and traumatic experiences. Now I'll go to Mr. Jabu Baloyi. Mr. Baloyi, are you able to hear us? Mr. Baloyi? Okay, I will then go to Public Protector again. We seem to be struggling with Mr. Baloyi since the beginning. Public Protector, are these cases of GBV relevant to the subject matter that your office is dealing with currently?
Yes, Program Director, yes, we do have several cases, but as I indicated earlier in my address, that they are very few. You've mentioned one where we've issued a report. I've mentioned the one where the Minister or Deputy Minister of Justice has lodged a complaint in Cape Town, which we are investigating on. And this one, we've issued a report today. So they are very few, but I like what Advocate Madumisa is saying, that and as well realizing that the Public Protector is an institution which they can utilize as NGOs, NPOs, and we've seen that as well. Mark Togo Mkwana when she was at the CRL, but now even her NPO would assist a lot to educate the public on this issue, especially of maladministration. And as well, if it comes to the police, the justice system, especially at the courts, where there are delays and matters are postponed. But again, I will encourage all NGOs, NPOs in this field to firstly try to address the matters with the various institutions. If it's justice, there must be a complaints unit within justice. Try resolve the matter with them. If they fail then to assist, escalate the matter to the Public Protector and use the Public Protector as an office of last resort. And also we can be able to conduct systemic investigation. If we are picking up that a lot of complaints are coming up or are from the Department of Justice, where women are failing to receive protection orders, or from the police, where how women are treated, there's delay or postponement of their cases. So that's where the Public Protector can intervene. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, PP. Due to time, I'll request that each one of the panelists take about 30 seconds to give us their last message that you'd like to send to the victims of the crime, to the perpetrators and the society at large in 30 seconds, starting with the Deputy Minister, Bogopane Zulu.
Thank you very much, Program Director, and thank you for the Office of the Public Protector for the invitation. We just want to say, South African women, there is help. Let's break the silence on gender-based violence. Reach out, speak, and help shall be granted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Advocate Brenda Madumise.
Thank you, thank you. I think for me is, can we all be engaged citizens? Can we step up? Can we show up so that we make a difference in the lives of many South Africans, but including our own lives, that we create a country and a society that values women and values its citizens. And I'm taking what the public protector has just said. We've got number of cases that we have brought before the police and the Minister of Justice that we have written and raised those issues. And once we don't get, as I said earlier, we're not receiving a response, we'll be knocking on your door, public protector, for you to start to intervene on our behalf.
Thank you so much. Pastor Miriam.
Thank you. We need to break the silence, and also to break the cycle, we need men and good men to stand up and start advocating and speaking against domestic violence, because women have spoken and we've been speaking for quite a long time. It's about time that men would start speaking on behalf of women, because only a little % of violent men are very loud, but good men are very quiet. And to the survivors, they need to stand and empower themselves, capacitate themselves, educate themselves in such a way that they're able to stand and not put up with this violence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Kwanazi Kaluva, your 30 seconds message.
Thanks a lot, facilitator. I think for me, for the victims, I would say there is help out there. Look for assistance. Go to your nearest social worker's office, go to local government, go everywhere and keep telling your story. Go to your nearest school, even if you're an adult, and report something, ask for help. And to the perpetrators, I would like to say, your time to enjoy yourself in this country is over now. We're tired of this nonsense. It can't move on any further. And then to the general public, I would like to say, please support the victims. Make sure that even if it's not your relative, it's not your friend, you do support them and you help them through the system. Thank you very much, facilitator.
Thank you so much, Mam Kwanazi. Major General, if you have anything to say, just for 30 seconds. Mr. Baloyi, we couldn't hear anything from you today. Okay, at this point then I will hand over to Advocate Kollega Kalega, just to summarize the discussions of the day and pave a way for our closure. Over to you, DPP.
Thank you, Program Director. Thank you for the time you have given for us to listen to the astute panelists that we have on this event today. Very good afternoon, Public Protector of the Republic of South Africa, Advocate Brenda Madumise Pachibo, whom I know very well and know that she has been on this journey of championing for the rights of women and girl children for decades on end. It's good to see, my sister, that you are still holding on to it. The Deputy Minister of Social Development, Henrietta Bugopane Zulu, Major General Linda from SAPS, Mr. Jabubaloi, it's a pity that we could not get your views this afternoon. Mrs. Togom Kwanaze Kaluva, Pastor Miriam Mashiho, our guests on the different platforms, PPSA staff with us today. Mine really is to summarize the discussions that we had this afternoon and put meaning on what Public Protector South Africa then resolves on. We have not used these platforms as mere events. We have used them as our action plan for Public Protector South Africa to ensure that we maximize our impact in society. It is important that from time to time we touch base with society to find out what are the burning issues at particular periods so that we too can be relevant in the execution of our mandate. Our mandate is not only informed by the Constitution and legislations and public policies, but it is also informed by the material conditions on the ground in our societies, communities, and families. Hence, it is very important for us to time and again touch base with those who are closer to our societies to get the feel of the ground so that we too can execute our mandate in line with what are the apex issues that are affecting the citizens of South Africa. Having listened to all the panelists this afternoon, Public Protector, I think the enhancement of our mandate is very clear. It is very clear, firstly, from what the Public Protector has said, that Public Protector South Africa indeed has a critical role in ensuring that it too places a hand in the combat and prevention of gender-based violence in our society. Having listened to Major General Linda from SAPS, it is very clear that the systems are in place, the tools are in place in the South African Police Service, and the work is happening. However, what is very critical, even from the complaints that we receive, is that context at all times needs to be put to the systems and the laws that are in place. But most importantly, in this fits in our mandate to ensure that there is no conduct or systems failure. What really fails victims of crimes, as we've heard here most of the time, is the implementation and the execution of these duties which would have been entrusted upon public servants by the relevant legislations and policies. It is very clear as well that we really need to align ourselves with continental studies and global studies as a country, which are there when it comes to issues of gender-based violence, so that we too can be relevant in dealing with these particular issues. Major General Linda, without responding to you, but addressing and summarizing the issues, because they also need to be put into context. There are a lot of psychosocial studies, by the way, in the globe, which deal with the impact of gender-based violence, where males are the perpetrators and how women then react to males handling their particular cases throughout the system. Hence, globally, the preference has always been that females, officials and experts be better placed to handle these particular cases. But also, I think we had a webinar over a month ago where the realities of compassion that females have in dealing with their work because of the inherent compassion that we have as the female species. And it is really not an indictment against male, but an indictment against society, that male persons are raised to be less compassionate in how they approach life skills. And unfortunately, this translates even into the workplace. Pastor Miriam Mashiho, thank you very much for sharing your journey. Indeed, Public Protector South Africa we need to look at a way of how do we support shelters and skills development, not only through our mandate, but when the space allows, also through resources. And also, how do we feed into the dialogues in respect of the knowledge and the work that we do as Public Protector South Africa? Mrs. Mkhwanazi Xaluva, I really want to commend you on the work that you are doing, but also remarkably, your remarks on the regulation of the faith-based organizations. It is indeed true that this is a space that government has been shying away from, but evidence has presented itself that the time is now for government to protect its citizens, because the Constitution gives them that they need to protect their citizens. It is a space indeed where the citizens have found themselves to be very, very vulnerable in. But also, how do civil society and organizations assist our families, our communities, and society to be less vulnerable to these kind of actions against the people of South Africa, but also what more needs to be done in fighting poverty so that people do not resort to faith that is unfaithful to them because they expect that that is their solution to poverty. If you look at most of the people, young girls who go to these faith-based organizations for assistance, the root cause is social circumstances. Socio-economic circumstances in our country are in such a manner that the citizens are extremely vulnerable. And the perpetrators themselves know this. Therefore, they know which angle to approach their victims because they know where their victims are most vulnerable. If we can close those vulnerability gaps, we would indeed see less people going into these beliefs with the hope and wish that they will be saved. The Deputy Minister, we really appreciate, and I promise that the Public Protector will take upon your call for us really to play a part, especially in this feedback survey, because sometimes you do require an independent person or body from those who are actually executing these duties to be able to do that assessment. We will definitely find a way to work with the Department of Social Development, and we do welcome the many programs that we have put in place as the Department of Social Development to try and eradicate gender-based violence. However, what is very important, government works in silos. It is important that we align to the interdepartmental system as envisaged in the National Development Plan. Having worked as a specialist prosecutor in sexual offenses and specialized prosecutions of gender-based violence myself for 12 years in my prosecuting career, I know that prosecutors focus on prosecution, police focus on investigations, the judiciary focuses on presiding over matters. Social development feeds in here and there, but there is no collaborative role in attending to the survivor of gender-based violence. No matter what legislation we put in place, no matter what policies we put in place, as long as we don't collaborate, as long as we don't come together and say, how do we feed the soul called a survivor of gender-based violence with the respective sectors that are there? For example, prosecution and the police, if a victim wants to withdraw a matter on the basis that the perpetrator supports them, even before that, you do a risk assessment of your case. You realize that these are the risk factors. You then refer to the relevant departments to intervene in order to fully support the survivor of crime. That is indeed a holistic approach that we envisage, and we hope that the Public Protector South Africa is going to play a vital role to ensure that we are able to execute this. Advocate Brenda Madumise Pachibo. Indeed, advocacy groups do require assistance. And I can say that the public protector has a very, very soft spot for this kind of work. And it is clear from some of the findings that she makes and remedial actions that are taken that she indeed wants to make sure that there is justice, social justice for the people of South Africa. In fact, we will ensure that we are in touch with your organization to get the cases that you are referring to so that we can assist to take these matters up. But further, I think it is important, Public Protector, that we meet with civil society, specifically the groups that have gathered here today, to ensure that we craft a proper way forward on how the Public Protector gets involved, even before a stage where the victim is frustrated. For example, other options available is that the Public Protector can become watching brief over some of these cases. Yes, we do not have as much resources as our hearts would like to have, but where the need arises, we would then be able to provide that particular support. For example, even the matters that the Public Protector have referred to, it is very clear that there are root causes that serve as a perpetuation of gender-based violence. For example, we need to ensure that should another crisis embark upon the country, there are specific programs directed at gender-based violence. We've seen programs directed at ensuring that people do not go hungry, but we haven't heard of specific programs to ensure that during this time, that these victims are locked up in their homes, mostly with their perpetrators, there is no abuse. What should in future be put in place? And as the period of lockdown also extends, how can that issue be attended to and be improved rather? Public Protector, it is very important indeed that we come together with civil society so that we ensure that we can maximize our mandate and we can have a greater impact within our society. Having said that, Public Protector, I wish to close in saying the following. We shouldn't allow ourselves to be restricted by legislation, policies that are in place. We should ensure that we uproot any conduct or system failures that perpetuate gender-based violence. We need to find a way to do this. Where we can't find a way, we must make a way. There shouldn't be an instant where we can't correct and act in the best interest of the survivors of gender-based violence. I thank you.
Thank you so much, TPP, for the insightful wrap-up and summary of the session. We greatly appreciate that. May I just request that all the panelists put on their videos so that we can be able to do a screen grab. If we can please all activate our videos. Thank you so much. Advocate Brenda, Major General and Mr. Baloyi. If you can please activate your videos, and then Noxolo will assist us with the screen grab. Okay, we seem not to be winning with the rest of the panelists. Thank you so much. Thank you for the discussions, panelists, and thank you also for your time. The seeds that you are sowing in your different areas of your passion and also of your calling will definitely yield good results for the country. Aluta continua, one day we shall overcome. Thank you so much for your time, and may the Lord bless you. Keep safe.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good afternoon, brother.